My name is Alex Wolf. I'm one of the analysts here at Case Western Reserve on the information security team. And today I'm going to be talking about RFID. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, here's a little overview of kind of who I am. So I've been working in information technology for about 6 years. I've spent the last 3 years here at Case in the UTech division. I started out over in the School of Medicine as a computer technician, and I did some cross-training with the information security team, and then about 1.5 years ago, I joined on that team, and since then, I've gotten some certifications through the SANS Institute. But outside of work, I'm essentially just your average geek. So everything from video games to Magic the Gathering to Marvel Comics, kind of what you expect when you think of your average tech geek. So what is RFID? So RFID is radio frequency identification, and that's basically using radio waves to read information from specific RFID tags. The tags are used to hold small amounts of information, and when we're talking about small amounts of information, you can go into Best Buy and pick up a 32 gig flash drive. We're talking significantly less than that. So about 2 kilobytes of information is what's held on your average tag. So that's between 96 and 128 characters. Those are usually unique serial numbers that are registered in your specific RFID system. So there are two main parts to RFID. There are the tags and there are the readers. So we'll start off with the tags. There are 3 different types of tags. There's active, passive, and semi-passive. So active tags are kind of the least common for the general public. Those are generally used in large manufacturing processes and things like that. They have a battery power to them, which allows for tracking of things like freight containers and things like that. Passive are the ones that you'll see in your day-to-day life. They have no battery. They're generally very small. If you see, there's a couple of examples there of like a barcode and things like that. So those are used specifically in smaller everyday options. And then there's semi-passive, which are essentially passive, but with a battery that allows for just a longer range, basically. And then the readers are made up of 2 main components. There's a signal generator and a signal detector. So kind of self-explanatory here. The generator is putting out a radio signal that the tags pick up and then relay back. The detector then takes those and then reads that information and takes it from there. So RFID is cool and all, but where is it used? So here on campus, we use it for access control purposes. For instance, when you're using the parking garages here at Case Western, when you have to badge in the morning and then the gate opens, what's happening is it's actually reading the RFID on your Case ID, verifying that you do actually work here and have access to that garage, and then it opens the gate for you. So in personal life, it's seen in everything from credit cards to passports, and that is used to hold the actual data. For example, on a credit card, it holds the actual payment information that allows you to use those tap and pay registers that you'll see when you go to the grocery store. It's also used in inventory management, which is one of the bigger uses for it in like civilian use when it comes to things like manufacturing. So it allows places like Walmart and Amazon to keep a good inventory of what they have on hand. That way they know where things are, where they need to go, and they can keep good track of those. Theft prevention, the gates that you see outside of things like grocery stores and other retailers, those are actually using RFID to determine whether or not something is being stolen. Those RFID tags are deactivated by a magnet when you actually pay for them at the register, and then if they're not, those actually set off an alarm that lets the rest of the store know. And the last one that I could think of was for animal tracking. So that's not only used in farming and agriculture, that's also used when you microchip your pet. So when you put a microchip in your pet and it gets lost, somebody finds it, returns it to a vet or some sort of shelter, those people are then going to read that chip, and it will have the information listed, such as, you know, who's the owner, where's that person located, what's a good contact number, things like that. So now on to the fun stuff. So we kind of know what it is and where it's used, but I work in information security, so I'm always curious of how these things can be exploited. So there are a couple different ways, and the three most common ways are eavesdropping, cloning and spoofing, and denial of service. So eavesdropping and replay attacks allow an attacker to not only capture the data that's being transmitted, but also lets them replay that information and allows them to gain access to areas in, say, a campus or a building that they maybe shouldn't have access to. Cloning and spoofing is very similar, except it's not going to actually allow them to read the information. It's just going to allow them to clone it and then put it back out to the reader. And a denial of service is fairly similar or fairly self-explanatory. Basically, it allows for an attacker to put out a similar frequency that interferes with the reader and allows the attacker to prevent access to a specific building or a reader. Some of the common tools that we've seen in security, the Proxmark 3 is one of the most popular tools. It's commercially available. It runs right around $300, and it has a limited range as to what it can do, but it has a range of about 2 to 3 feet, so that allows for an attacker to pick up an RFID signal from something like your Case ID or a credit card, and then store that information and replay it to either gain access to a building or to use at, you know, a grocery store. Like I said, it does have a limited range, only a couple of feet, but there are ways to create custom long-range antennas that you can attach to these types of devices that allow you to get a little bit further range. So outside of completely unplugging and just going off the grid, what are some other ways that you can actually prevent this and, you know, keep yourself safe? So the easiest way is RFID shielding, and that comes in a multitude of different varieties. The two most popular are the sleeves that I have a picture of there, as well as a lot of wallets, purses, things like that. You'll normally see the little RFID chip, yep, like that. And it'll tell you there should be like a little symbol on the product itself. But basically what that does is it doesn't allow the transfer of those radio frequencies between a reader and a card. I actually had one about a year ago, and I've since switched away, but it made me actually take my Case ID out to badge in every day. And for me, I was willing to accept that risk, but these are just some options that you have. The last one is situational awareness, and basically, that's a good thing to have in general, but like I said, since this is pretty close range within a couple of feet, when you're using things like your credit card or your Case ID, just be aware of your surroundings, you know, kind of who might be lurking around. Other than that, I think that's about it. I have a couple minutes for questions if anybody has any. Okay. I actually don't have the cubes up here.
I'm sure I can give the question to you. I was just curious as to how common a problem this is in the campus area, if you've had incidences.
So we actually haven't seen it on campus. This is kind of one of the more niche hacking options that are available. This would be a very targeted attack generally. Like I said, it's pretty close quarters. So we actually haven't seen it on campus here, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. Don't want to scare anyone, just want to make this information available.
Are you saying that with that Proxmark, you can create a new card that has the same stream as somebody else's card?
That is correct, yes. And you can actually buy those, if I go back a few slides, that white card on the right-hand side there, that's actually a blank Proxmark card. And you can actually put the information from an existing RFID tag onto that new copy card.
So Alex, I've heard that like when you lock your car in a parking deck, that you shouldn't use your remote because there could be people picking up your signal, going into your car, getting your stuff out, and then basically then locking your car and leaving with all your materials. They say that you should just lock your car manually. Have you heard of that?
So I actually haven't heard of that, and I know that in my car I don't have the option to manually lock it, so I don't really have a good answer for that at the moment, but you definitely could. You can't set your alarm most of the time without using the key fob, but that is something to take into consideration. And I guess that's everything. Thanks for your time, everybody, and have a great day.